first story of tonight, and I'm going to open it up with a banger. Okay, so last week, last week during our updates and viewer comments podcast show where we focused on a lot of the topics and evidence and updates and comments from viewers and other stories that we covered, we touched on the JonBenet case again. And I swear, so we first started doing true crime only probably 3-4 months ago, and you brought the JonBenet case to the table. Now, I remember this, right? So it happened in 96. I was pretty young, but I remember the JonBenet case. I just wasn't focused on true crime yet. But once we transitioned into true crime, once you brought this story to the table, I just can't get enough of it. It is like, if you look up true crime in a dictionary, the JonBenet case is going to be there. Literally, it is insane. It is so crazy. When you first brought it up, I was so sure that it was Gary Oliva that was the murderer of JonBenet. You know, Oliva, it was the murder of JonBenet. Like, it made sense. His interests, his background, everything lined up with him being at the memorial, all that stuff, right? Then we had viewers leave comments saying, no, you need to check this person out. Or, no, it was definitely the parents. It was the brother. It was like going off, right? Well, we touched on Rod Westmoreland, which was John Ramsey's best friend, banker, and this person who left the comment gave some amazing evidence that matched it, and I even missed some of it because I couldn't find that second comment. There's even more evidence for that, but now, completely different suspect again, and I want to dive into this, and I want to keep bringing up suspects, and maybe we can get through all of them and then figure out which one makes the most sense.
Make our own suspect list.
Yeah, but this one, again, like every time, I swear, every suspect we come on, I say the same thing. No, this is probably the one.
Trust me, I know every single suspect we have talked about thus far, which the first JonBenet Ramsey video, we went through several theories and suspects. Every single one of those sounded plausible.
Yep.
And then the additional evidence video, we talked about the housekeeper and Gary. And I think Gary was the first one. And then we talked more about the housekeeper, the second one. And then wondering who could be tied to her, which I actually think the banker is theorized maybe the housekeeper and the banker. And we also talked about maybe somebody that was mad at John hiring Gary, which I feel like could also go with maybe the banker theory that we just talked about recently. So I feel you. Every single suspect we have talked about, I have thought was plausible. Santa, Helgoth. It's so crazy.
You can put them all up on a wall and throw a dart, and they all make sense.
But the monkey wrench every time is that dang ransom note. Every time.
I know it. Yep, every single time. And what's nice is this ties into the ransom note a little bit. So, who are we talking about this time? Have you heard the name Robert Chris Wolf?
I'm not like great with remembering names,
Me neither.
I don't think so.
Okay,
but we'll see.
It's an uncommon one, and there is so much evidence here, you guys. So much evidence here. So, Robert Chris Wolf is a Colorado native and local. He was a Boulder journalist. He had a master's degree in journalism. He worked for the Colorado Daily. He also worked for Colorado County Business Report, so dealing directly with businesses. And remember, Access Graphics was John's baby. You know, John helped turn that thing into a $1 billion company, which ultimately ended up being bought out by General Electric, which is insane. Like, such an incredible feat. So, Robert Chris Wolf, okay? Some of the background here. and why I think he could be our guy. So, we'll back it up to the first point here. Robert Chris Wolf sued John Ramsey and Access Graphics for $50 million.
That's a heck of a lawsuit.
That is a big lawsuit, ladies and gentlemen. That's a big lawsuit there.
Yeah.
And he sued him because they labeled him and said that he was a suspect in their book when they were talking during interviews, just from calling him a suspect. You know how many suspects this case had?
Literally like the whole town of Boulder.
For real. I'm not even joking. The whole town of Boulder, really.
Yeah.
And so he went with a $50 million lawsuit. When they ended up going to court, the judge ruled against it and shot him down, said no go, it doesn't meet the requirements, they didn't do anything wrong, you were part of this investigation, and let's dig into why. And I guess here's an interesting thing too. So when the judge shot it down, Wolf's lawyer tried to come back and prove that Patsy was the killer.
Oh.
Yeah. With, again, not enough evidence, and the judge shot it down. So could a $50 million lawsuit that a judge says is a joke and gets thrown out build resentment? Or was there already resentment there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I mean, if you're suing somebody, there probably is resentment, period.
And remember that note, okay? It wasn't directed only at John. It was talking about his income. It was talking about his job. It was talking about things that a journalist might have access to, your overall income or quarterly bonus of $118,000, right?
Yeah, especially if you're talking about local businesses and stuff.
County court business reports. Now, his connection, okay? So, because of his job at the Colorado County Business Reports, he did an interview, right? Because you would assume if somebody was a suspect or could be the person tied to JonBenet, they had to have some kind of connection there. I don't think sitting behind a desk and seeing business reports for the county is enough of a connection. Well, he went out of his way to interview John's assistant at Access Graphics. So there's first-hand account of him being on site, being involved with Access Graphics. He was doing a piece for one of his companies he worked for, the Colorado Daily or whatever like that, and he was working directly with Access Graphics. Interesting, right? So could he have been implanting himself into the company, John, their life?
Maybe.
Right. I know.
Possibly.
Yeah, and it sure seems that way, especially when you look at all these things in a row and the judge dismissing libel suit, all that good stuff. So here's an interesting fact, okay?
Okay.
So following the death of JonBenet, Wolf's girlfriend at the time called police and labeled him a suspect.
Whoa.
Yeah, and said...
Why?
And essentially said, hey, police, I want to let you guys know that my boyfriend, Chris Wolf, is acting super strange, and he was missing last night during the time that JonBenet was killed. Chris Wolf ended up suing his ex, too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. What on earth would make a girlfriend, somebody that you're dating, somebody that you could have a future with, a life with, they were still together, call the police and say that you did? I feel like you have to really be standing out to do that.
Yeah, because if you think about, like, Gilgo Beach, okay? The wife didn't know, and if she had any inkling, she was, like, repressing that. Same with BTK. Same
Yes.
with many serial killers and, people, that are married to pedos or anything else. Like, they may get this inkling and then be like, no, but that's my, partner. Like, I trust them, or they want to trust them, and they repress these feelings out of, like, being like, well, if I'm wrong, that is a horrible thing to accuse someone of or to ask about. Like, it's extremely uncomfy, okay, to, like, be like, are you a serial killer?
Mm-hmm. I know.
So for her to reach out and do that, I feel like that says something for sure.
I agree 100%. So, yes, I agree. Super suspicious. I think that there is probably more there than even she was letting on, because, man, there has to be something for you to turn over like that. But
Yeah.
So the Boulder police claimed in a 2003 report that they extensively looked into Robert Chris Wolf. However, when I read this, right away my questions are, or my red flags go up, saying they thought that it was the Ramseys, though.
They did.
How can you unbiasedly, thoroughly investigate someone when you wholeheartedly believe it's somebody else?
I feel like there's no way they did.
I agree. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah, with the way they truly believed it was the Ramseys. They really did. And everything they investigated was through that lens of thinking it was John and Patsy, or one of them, and the other was helping, like, cover it up or something. So I feel like there's no way they really dug that deep into anybody else.
Agree.
And if I'm wrong, and I get proven wrong, because I feel like there isn't any proof that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I would feel bad, but I mean, with the evidence we have thus far into the case of the police's, like, conduct and, in this case is just god awful.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I think mistakes were made and they picked their person and they started to work backward. And we see that all the time, and it always ends up in a giant pile of,
Yeah.
So, I also thought it was interesting, too, with the lawsuit, that Chris and his lawyer were going out of their way to try and prove Patsy did it. Mm-hmm. That is so common when you have a criminal or someone guilty of a crime. Instead of not saying anything, they try to point somebody else out, when that makes it obvious. If you're a criminal, you should just say nothing. Nothing. Remove yourself from the case. Don't get reinvested into somebody else doing something else. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's evidence in itself. Now, kicker here. One of the biggest question marks this case has had is victory, SBTC, right? So many people have theorized that, is it the Subic Bay Training Center in the Philippines that John trained at? Is it Southern Bell Telephone Company, which had partnerships with Access Graphics? Is it
Saved by the Cross?
Saved by the Cross and the local church where Gary Oliva hung out? Or, we have all these things. Is it that other guy that we'll cover as a suspect that signed SBTC in yearbooks, that something about being the conqueror or whatever, something to be the conqueror? Here's a crazy one, okay?
Okay.
So Robert Chris Wolf has proof, there is evidence that he wore a sweatshirt that had SBTC on it. People were able to confirm that was Santa Barbara Training Center.
Whoa.
Connection with the SBTC. Wild, right? These connections are just, they make me flip and turn, and I'm not sure who's the right one here. It is such an onion.
I think the real answer is the town of Boulder had a satanic cult that sacrificed JonBenet Ramsey, and all of them are guilty.
Yeah, the whole town.
It is a giant conspiracy.
The whole town. The whole town.
Yes.
All the way to Atlanta.
Yes,
Georgia.
that's why they had her in the pageant beforehand. They put her on display.
Yep.
And then they all sacrificed her.
Yep. That sounds logical.
Sorry. I don't want to make a mockery of it, but I mean,
yeah,
I kind of had to go there.
There's just a ton of
It's
theories.
just insane. I don't understand.
We talk about all of them.
It makes me incredibly sad. This really, really sweet, charismatic, little carefree, happy girl had this many predators
around her.
Tell me
it is wild.
It literally can bring me to tears. Like,
it's wild.
Like when I read the autopsy report and like her clothes and thinking about like her little hands and like the way she was tied, it's really, really hard.
I know.
It's really hard. Whoever did this is a monster. And I just cannot wait till we find out who it truly is, because I do think that this case will be solved eventually.
I hope so.
I think it will.
I'm curious what you guys think about the sweater with SBTC. Remember, this is in Boulder, Colorado, hundreds of miles away from Santa Barbara Training Center. And then you have SBTC on the note. So police said they investigated him, right? People were not satisfied with that investigation. So the ex-girlfriend here went out of her way to take pieces of his journal and recreate the handwritten note. Now, do you want to see the comparison?
Oh, gosh.
So this is Chris Wolf, okay?
So he rewrote it.
No, she did. By taking cuts from his journal. She recreated this from his own writing, unknowing. You can't have someone recreate writing. They're just going to do it different. Now, I know you can have experts say that there is no way to do it different. We'll be able to see certain, things that stand out. But someone could do it different. At least gives them a chance. So she took it directly from his journals.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that close? Look at the M on Mr.
The way his L's have the little bend, the zeros, the zeros in the 1800,000, like that all looks very similar.
Look at on group, the R to O, both connected.
R to O, the G.
And the U's are not up and vertical. They actually curve in a little bit like it's the O.
You know what's interesting about the G right there is look at how it's like got that little flick at the top. Like the way he writes his G's, I feel like is not normal. It's like
I agree.
It's not normal.
I agree.
Like it's not not what you typically see. I feel like the way he's writing that.
I agree. I think there's something very interesting there. And if you look at the 1 on the 118,000 or 100,000, his ones actually have a little curve in them. Like if you look at my ones are very straight, you guys. I don't have any curves in my ones. They are very hardcore straight. So that's interesting. The 8s are pretty close too because they're kind of wide. Yep, the double T's on attache.
All the T's.
Attache or
all
whatever.
All the T's are super similar. Now, what about the A's? Does he do the full A with the little thing at the top? No, he doesn't.
No, that doesn't mean it couldn't have been swapped, though. Yes.
Oh, boom. So he does it in some and not in others?
Yep.
Where it has the little hook at the top?
Weird. Yep.
That is weird.
That is interesting, right? Is that note not damning?
I mean, Gary Oliva's handwriting kind of threw me for a loop, too.
I know. But the difference in that is you got to remember, Gary wants to be seen as the guy. Could he have changed his handwriting to look like this handwriting? Gary wants to claim that.
How messed up you got to be in the head to want to be accused of a little girl's murder?
I get it. I hear you.
Like,
but
we've already had somebody come out of the woodwork and say, I did it, and be proved not to have done it.
I know.
It's just...
I know.
So weird.
It is weird. But they submitted this, and multiple people got involved. So you have John Ramsey, who came out at an interview and said, when he was asked specifically about Wolf, okay? And John Ramsey said, you know what's interesting is I think the person that killed JonBenet also killed Cheryl McGraw. Okay, now... That's a nice, smooth transition there. Who's Cheryl McGraw? Cheryl McGraw was, Cheryl McGraw was the one Chris Wolf interviewed. I actually meant Suzanne Chase. I'm sorry, I messed that up, you guys. Suzanne Chase. So, John Ramsey said the one who killed JonBenet also killed Suzanne Chase. So, who's Suzanne Chase? Suzanne Chase was a student at the University of Colorado that was murdered on a sidewalk. Super close.
In broad daylight?
At night. Super close to the Ramseys, and exactly 1 year after the JonBenet.
To the day?
Not to the day, but within a week. So it was on the 21st, and JonBenet is the 25th. So, like, so close. Yeah. And you know how she was killed, Suzanne Chase?
How?
An unknown object to the head. Just like JonBenet. JonBenet was killed from an unknown object to the head.
And strangulation.
Yeah, but I think strangulation is not labeled as the cause of death. I think that was extra. Like that was the staging that they wanted people to think, when really what killed her was the hit to the head. Actually,
I have a lot of evidence saying that the strangulation was actually the ending.
Which is so weird because the garrote isn't. That's. I don't believe that garrote was put around her neck to do that. That is the worst weapon in the entire world of weapons. It is the most inconvenient, unreasonable weapon there is.
That's why I feel like it was like almost like a fetish thing, or it was a staging thing.
Even for fetish, the garrote doesn't do anything.
But the thing is it was embedded, and they know for a fact it was done while she was still alive.
I thought it was post-mortem.
No.
Okay, we're going to have to look at that again, because everything I was reading when I was doing research on this says the opposite. Says that that they believe that the hit to the head killed her or would have killed her.
Well, I can pull back up the autopsy reports.
Yeah.
Because there's the original autopsy report, and then the coroner came out with some statements after the fact talking more about it. Mm-hmm. So... we can look into it more.
For sure. Now, for you guys, here is a picture of Suzanne Chase. Suzanne Chase is bright blonde, looks very similar to JonBenet.
Okay.
Yeah, very weird. Mm-hmm. Similar way of death. Did whatever hit JonBenet in the head, is it the same kind of tool that hit Suzanne Chase in the head? I don't think we'll know. But what's interesting, so the ex-girlfriend called police and said that Chris Wolf killed Suzanne Chase, okay? And it's very similar to JonBenet. Now, so this reporter that was investigating this called Wolf's old number. And Wolf had moved out from that roommate. He got a roommate on the phone that used to live with Chris Wolf. So the reporter started asking him questions, okay, about Suzanne Chase. And he said Chris Wolf never made any mention to JonBenet, but he did have a love interest into Suzanne Chase. And he said that they went out on one date, that he used to go to a restaurant where she was a cashier and hang out there all day. And when that reporter ended up asking Chris Wolf about it, Chris Wolf said that, and this is strange, he said, yeah, I know who all the pretty girls were at that restaurant. I knew them all. But I didn't have any interest in Suzanne Chase because she's 18 years younger than me. And I don't need another notch on my holster like that. I've already been there and done all that. really strange thing to say.
That is a strange thing to say.
If you're in your 30s and someone is like, hey, like, you think that freshly 18-year-old girl is attractive and you want to pursue her, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to do that because I don't need another notch on my belt. I'm going to be like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
What do you mean? That she's going to school. Like, no. It's weird.
It is weird.
I feel like that proves that there was some kind of interest there. So the roommate went on further to say that he was pretty open and honest about his interest in Suzanne Chase. What ended up happening was he asked Suzanne Chase out, okay, and Suzanne Chase said no, she won't go out with him in that way because she had a boyfriend, but she would go out with him as a friend. So they went on one date. Wolf lied about this. Okay, and then a couple weeks later, Suzanne Chase was dead, hit in the head. Right?
Man.
I feel like this is super good evidence.
I feel like it is too.
Really good evidence, you guys. 1 year exactly after the JonBenet case.
Just tell a guy no. Like,
yeah.
Go out as a friend.
Well, I don't know how I feel about that. Look, if you want friends, you should be allowed as a girl to have guy friends. I don't see there being anything wrong with that. As long as you're clear that, at least for now, it's not going to go that direction. You as a woman should never have to worry about being murdered.
No.
Never.
No, I'm not talking about murder. I just mean, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's irrelevant. I just feel like when there's a guy who's super into you and, like, asks to go out with you and you're like, no, but I would go out with you, like, just to hang out as a friend. Like, the guy is usually, like, his interest in you isn't just going to go away.
Yeah, that's true.
And if he's, like, a creep, I don't know.
But the problem in that situation is that he could be a creep, not that she's wanting to associate with him.
It can just, I don't know. In my experience, it doesn't lead to anything good. I'm just saying.
I see where you're coming from. However, I still put blame on the man in that situation.
It is his fault.
You should be able to go and hang out with a woman who is saying that she's not interested in you because she has a boyfriend and just hang out with friends. The guy should have enough self-control to say, you know what, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not looking just to be friends, so, you know, here's my number. If something changes, I would really love to take you out one day. Give me a call. You know what I mean?
I know.
Like, I feel like it's not up to the girl in that situation to control him in that way. He needs to control him, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Wolf lies and says that he never went after her, never went out with her. He had some weird statement about knowing every pretty girl in the area. He was 18 years older than her, and they did go out on a date, and then all of a sudden she ended up murdered with a bash to the head like JonBenet. Like, dude, the evidence here just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking. He has a sweatshirt with SBTC on it. This reporter, after talking with the roommate, ended up having a conversation with Chris Wolf, and Chris Wolf chose not to work with police, okay? This reporter talked him into working with police. However, the police were already biased and supposedly believed that he had thoroughly been investigated, so it makes sense to me why he might go under the radar in this situation already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm super curious what you guys think. This, again, is not a common name that I've heard.
It is not a name. I don't think I've actually heard this name at all, if I'm being honest.
Robert Chris Wolf.
Yeah, I don't think I have. And this is exactly why I cannot for the life of me understand why the Boulder Police Department doesn't want to release the DNA found on JonBenet's body for DNA research, the whatever. I can't even say it out.
Genealogy.
The genealogy testing, so that they can use these databases to possibly find a lead. You know, John Ramsey has been pushing for it. They've, requested it multiple times, and they do not want to release it.
No, they don't.
And I don't understand it. It almost, like, I try really hard.
It's like they're unwilling to be wrong.
I know. And they already have had a change in police chief, I think 2 or 3 times since JonBenet's murder. So when there's a change of leadership like that, like we saw in Gilgo,
that's a new chance to change things.
That is a chance to do things right. And they did it in Gilgo, okay, with the Gilgo Beach murders and Rex Heuermann. With this, they're still doubling down on not doing things that are beneficial to the investigation and finding out who murdered JonBenet. And I don't get it. Why?
I don't either.
I keep asking why. Why are they still not wanting to release these things and be seen as like they did a bad job or were wrong? Is there a different reason than them just not wanting to be seen as wrong? Do they know who did it? Or can they not say it?
Yeah. Yep.
Can they not let it be found out who did it? And I know that goes into conspiracy. I know that goes into conspiracy, okay? But at this point in the case, I just do not understand it.
Have you heard about the reporter with the last name Shapiro? I forget his first name. He is like an activist reporter. Like media hates him because he fights media all the time, saying how bad media is for cases, while he's still a legal attorney, media source, like journalist. And he contacted the FBI and tried to file a lawsuit through one of the Boulder media sources because they blackmailed the chief of police to continue this narrative that it was the Ramseys who did it. That's what he claims. Yeah, and the FBI never took it to the next steps to bring an official charge against them, but that's what he claims was going on. So is there something more that's stopping it? Because the Ramseys themselves were such good moneymakers and media attention and focus? I don't know.
Oh, like, is there a benefit to their town, to the media, to, like, everyone involved to, like, keep this not solved?
Yeah. Yep, I wonder. I haven't looked up the details of that blackmail claim or anything like that, but the reporter Shapiro, that's what he claims, that they were blackmailed.
Wouldn't it be interesting to look into, like, how much a town makes on an unsolved notorious cold case like this? Like, what's the revenue? Because, people totally, like, come there to, like, see the house, and, like, it would be incredibly hard to research and figure that out. Mm-hmm. But it would be interesting to know.
Very.
Like, would they be losing a significant amount of money if this got found out who it was and case was closed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because people are probably still coming to Boulder to try to figure it out.
Agreed. Yeah, I would be curious to know, too, and I want to know the details of that. Actually, I'm going to add it to my notes here to try and find out those blackmail details, exactly what it was that the Post was doing to blackmail the police department, because I don't know, but I want to know.
I want to know, too.
Because is it the media the whole time that's stalling this because the unknown factor is such good revenue? I don't know. I just know that something needs to break with this. It's not okay to go 20 years with all these possible suspects and not have them continue being pulled in for interviews, relentless interviews, until someone breaks and something makes sense and they figure it out. But the whole time the police needed the Ramseys to be it, and I just don't know if the Ramseys are it. So
I mean, personally, I don't believe so, but I'm not going to say there's no chance. Like, clearly there's a chance. It could be. You know the SBTC on a number dial? Somebody broke this, but it spells out, like, it. You know how it's like a 1 through 9 or whatever in letters? Well, if you do it that way, it also spells out PATC, Patsy. Yeah. That's so
tin
ridiculous.
hat. I know, tin hat. But
Super tin
people
hat.
trying to figure out like SBTC. I wonder how they figure that. They're sitting there like, oh yeah, I'm on to something.
Yeah.
Pat C. Yep, one of the 4 letters that could be on that number. But I'm super curious what you guys think. I think this is incredible evidence. Did you also know that John Ramsey had a picture behind his desk of the battleship that was ported at the Subic Bay Training Center in Philippines, and on the bottom of that picture, faded in the water, is SBTC.
No.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep. So I think there is some meat on the bone there for the SBTC referencing Subic Bay Training Center, but I don't. It could also be Santa Barbara Training Center. It could also be Southern Bell Telecommunications. It could also be 100 other things. It is such a loop and unknown in this situation. All I know is this is great evidence, and I am truly at a loss for who it is. I feel like Rod Westmore had some good evidence. I feel like this is stronger, but I feel like Rod had good evidence. This is great evidence. Gary Oliva is great evidence with photo evidence of him being at the memorial carrying something that had the same duct tape as what was on her. Like, great evidence. Are we looking at a crime that is more than one person? Could both of these people be involved? Could him as a reporter somehow gotten in contact with Gary Oliva and a comment was made to a girl that looked like JonBenet and the conversation continued and turned into something criminal like this? Like, could this happen?
Yeah. I mean, because
Suzanne Chase looks like a grown-up version of JonBenet. Like, dude.
Yeah, and the evidence with Gary is like the stun gun.
That is a big deal.
She has stun gun marks on her body in 2 different places, and he had a stun gun in his backpack when he was picked up a little later after that. He had written a poem to her. He had pictures of her in his backpack, and it makes you question, why did he feel, and right away, like calling that friend, like right away, why did he have this feeling of like guilt and like, oh my gosh, I hurt her. Like, all of that is so strange that's why I almost wondered, is he a really mentally unhealthy person who maybe was frogging and staying in the Ramsey's basement and witnessed it?
Yeah.
Saw it happen and somehow internalized
his instability in himself, because he's a convicted molester.
He is.
Yes.
And maybe he was planning on doing it. Who knows? But he saw that happen to her, and so he blamed himself. Because a lot of molesters don't necessarily want to kill the kid. Like, there's separate versions of it where it's like, they want a literal relationship with a child, okay, like you would with an adult, and then there's some who are like violent, you know. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting looking at all the profiles of the people that were around her and how it seems so probable any of them could have done it. So that's why I go back to the satanic cult.
Right, yeah. So someone was convicted in the Suzanne Chase crime, but it's not great evidence, though, because apparently there's evidence that this person had consensual sex with her, because she had a couple different DNA profiles in her from men. And there is still an unknown. So, yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah. Anyways,
girl was having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, good for her. She should. It sucks that she came across a horrible guy that could do something like that. But I am super curious what you guys think. I know this is such an old case, but I just can't put it down. I have to keep looking at these potential suspects, man.
I mean, there's a lot of people who still feel like that about the case to this day. Yep. I mean, it's newer for you to dig into, but there's people who have literally been investigating it since the beginning. And there's so much information on this case.
Yep. But let us know what you think.
Yeah.
And that is it for JonBenet.